Hello, everyone. We are live yet again. This is going to be one of my authors' chats of the week. And I want to give you a heads up that I am going through renovations for my basement. It's a big project, so if you hear any noise in the background, it's probably that. We're putting in a bathroom right now, so it's a little noisy, at least on my side. So apologies in advance for that. But as always, I'm going to keep an eye out for my co-host, and I'll be sending an invite just right now. We'll get things started talking about books, writing, publishing, and everything in between. Let's see if he... Hello!
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little bit tired. I just got back from work teaching today, so I'm a little. I've talked to I've talked to 100 people, 100 kids today. So, but I'm ready. Second wind is coming.
I'm so sorry. I feel like I know, like, the side of being like the writing side, it's so quiet that for me as an extreme extrovert, I love these talks. But on the other side of things, when you have the day and you've been talking to 100 kids, I understand. So no worries there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you've ever listened to any of these kind of live chats, but they're pretty conversational. If anybody in the feed pops up, some kind of bookish comment or a question, I usually try to make note on that. I think depending on how people join or who follows who, I may or may not see all those. So feel free to note anything you see on your end. And outside of that, I will let you introduce yourself and what you write, since you're my co-host today.
Oh, great, beautiful. Hi, everyone. So I am author J.S. Gold. I am the author of the Sanhedrin Chronicles, which debuted last November. It is a urban fantasy, and I think what sets it apart from the pack, what I've been leaning into, is that it's a Jewish fantasy. So it's not just a typical urban fantasy with angels and demons and vampires and werewolves, but it is inspired by Jewish Kabbalah mysticism, by Jewish folklore, and really building a world from the ground up that had Judaism at its roots, at its root foundations. It's been quite the whirlwind. It's been amazing to be a debut author. I've just receiving feedback, making content, putting it out into the world, and I think you can back me up on this, that like when you create something, you think you're done when you stop creating it, but when you put it out into the world, it takes a life of its own, and so you're constantly in this negotiation with it on what it means and what you meant. So it's been a real pleasure to have it reverberate back to me and see what everybody's thought.
Well, it is. It's a wonderful experience, especially when you're a debut author, because everything's new. The whole process is new. Getting out there is new. Finding your readership, building your readership, it's all new. And then, again, hearing that early feedback for your first works, which, depending on the feedback and who you are, sometimes that's nerve-wracking to, see, because, for anybody, pretty much every author I've talked about, when you're writing, that's part of you. And you're putting that out there for the world to see, and that can be a little bit of a nail-biting emotional roller coaster for at least a moment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you said earlier, I listen. It's you're very fortunate. You're an extrovert, that you're used to working through these things with other people. You thrive off of it. You get the energy from it. And you're right to say I'm more of an introvert, or as the fantasy author Scott Lynch said, he described himself as an extrovert when I'm on, but then an introvert all other times. And I think I'm in the same mold. And you kind of have to be as a teacher. But yeah, there is this part of me that you write something and you make it, and you're not. You see it as the thing that you're making to communicate with the world. So you don't anticipate that the conversation afterwards is how you're going to be communicating. The thing itself, the story itself, is the communication. But for a lot of people, and I'm sure you included, for a lot of people, they want to hear from your mind. They want to hear what you were thinking when you wrote that. And when it's well, I was thinking what I wrote. I don't know. You know what I mean? You always have to interrogate what you put out into the world.
Yeah, it's wild, the questions you start hearing on repeat, and you realize, yes, I have to at least come with some kind of preconceived answers for for relatively basic questions.
Yeah.
What was your original inspiration? And I'm sure we're going to get to this in a moment too, so be ready.
Oh, I prepared. I've prepared. Yeah.
Characters and author by author, book by book, project by project, that can vary dramatically. So
yeah,
I'm going to then actually turn it to you and say, what made you decide you were going to sit down and write a book? Because so many people come up with fantastic ideas, but they are too nervous, don't have the time, million and two reasons, but they never actually write a book. What made you
million
do
and
that?
three. So actually, the real genesis of it was in 2018, and it actually didn't start with anything Jewish at all. It actually started with the movie, the Black Panther, the Marvel movie,
Yeah.
and which was such a phenomenon, rightly so. It was such an amazing movie. And as I was watching it, what stuck out to me about it was that it wasn't the usual Marvel fare because it leaned into identity in a very profound way. It would have been very easy to have the black identity of Black Panther, of T'Challa, the main character. It would have been easy for his black identity to be window dressing, and for them to just have a quote normal story, like an archetypical story, but the main cast happens to be black, right? They wanted to do that, but they didn't settle for that. Coogler, the director, wanted to have a story about the black experience. He wanted to have a story about what it meant to be black in that moment in time. And first of all, it was a fantastic film. Second of all, I saw the reaction that the black diaspora had for it across the world. And I said to myself, I really want that for the Jewish diaspora. Mm-hmm. And there has been Jewish folklore and Jewish fantasy in the zeitgeist for a while now. The Golem and the Genie is a famous example of broke through the fantasy audiences in 2013. But I was looking for something in more of the superhero Marvel mold. I wasn't necessarily looking to lean into the fairy tale folklore aspect in terms of the aesthetics of the storytelling. I was looking for like quips, fun times, superhero adventure, where a Jewish guy is exploring Jewish themes that hopefully are universal, but are also particular in how they speak to the Jewish community.
So how did you then come up with the idea of your character? Like, what made you write this particular person the way you wrote him?
So the first challenge ended up being the main character, because the first challenge of the book is, why had I not thought of Judaism as a cool thing, a cool part of myself, a cool extension of my identity? Why was it that when I thought of fantasy, I thought of Tolkien, and I thought of Hobbes, and I thought of Martin, and all these amazing high worlds, and I didn't think of Judaism as a cool, epic, magic world to explore? And so the main character, Arthur, came from that idea, because I said, okay, what if I have a main character who's asking that same question, and what if I have a main character who is a lapsed Jew in many ways because he doesn't feel that sense of coolness, right, or that sense of, like, epicness from his own identity, and instead he's trying to fill it with, let's say, Beowulf, or let's say the Odyssey. He's trying to fill it with Greek models, with Norse models, even Japanese. He looks to Japanese mythology and Shinto religion. Like, he's trying to fill this lack of badassness in his life with every other group and their culture except for his own. And then the story unfolded from there of, well, what if he was thrown into an actually super cool secret order of Jewish demon hunters? And what if they used Hebrew and Kabbalah magic to save the world from evil? And it was all Jewish. Right, yeah. Yeah. So that's where we get our main character, Arthur, and his journey, and really uncovering, it's like, all right, so if he is a lapsed Jew who it feels this kind of push or bounce off from his identity, then naturally we need to write a story about him coming home and having a homecoming back to himself, and what he's missing by severing this limb of himself, right? So that was the genesis, and that was the kind of shape of how I did it.
So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're following a single POV throughout your story.
There is another one, but it's brief. It's about 5 or 6 chapters. So yes, you're basically right on the money.
Okay. Who then are some of your other characters outside of Arthur? Because theoretically, sure. I've read The Road. You can write a book with like 1 or 2, but that's very hard and very niche to do.
It is.
So
it is.
Some of your other characters.
Yeah, and quickly to that point, I think one of the things coming out of the release of the novel and the conversation we were alluding to is that Arthur, because you're spending so much time with him, people have said, like, listen, there's a beat or two where I could have used a break from Arthur, and that makes perfect sense to me. Now, we do have a break from him talking about other characters. One of our antagonists, her name is Rivka, and she is an antagonist to Arthur because she is seeking an ancient stone in Jewish folklore called the Zohar Stone, which is purported to be a stone that can bring people back from the dead. And yes, very classic fantasy. And now, in actual Jewish lore, it's unclear if the Zohar Stone is a stone at all, or if it's a kind of a plasma, or if it's a metaphysical, like, source of light, what have you. But in the story, it's a stone, and she wants to revive her deceased husband. She's Hasidic, and she wants to revive her deceased husband, who really took care of her when she was an outcast within the Hasidic community. And he really wrapped his arms around her, and she lost him to an exorcism done by the very Jewish demon hunters who Arthur is now a part of.
Aha, I see now.
Yes. So what she does is she summons the archvillain of the story, which is a demoness, a woman demon named Egrat, and it's kind of that tension of, will Rivka wrestle Egrat and use her, the demon woman, to her will, or will Egrat and her own will win over Rivka, and will she possess Rivka's body? And so you have that kind of tension as both of them are in opposition to Arthur and his goals.
Wow, that's really neat. I like that. And a good backstory for a villain makes a good villain.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, listen, villains are characters too, right? They have to have those backstories.
So with your debut now finished, are you planning for this to be a series? Was this a standalone? Like, what are your ideas of what happens next?
Yeah, I mean, you could probably attest to this, but when you're a fantasy writer, sequels just come popping off your head, right? It's very hard. It's hard to write a standalone. Yeah. It's hard to, like, contain it. And when I was writing it, immediately I knew this has got to be a series. Characters and ideas and scenes were popping into my mind from books into the future. So I am currently about halfway through the sequel, where, just to give a sneak preview, where we find that Arthur and his chosen one status is part of actually a larger constellation of characters who are destined to fight the dark. And so the second book, actually, to your point earlier, it splits into 6 POVs instead of really just Arthur. And it's so much fun. It's so, you have it on the money. It's so much more fun to bounce around into these different individuals than just stay with one for too long.
See, for you, like, you are braver than I am. For my first 3 series, I stuck with a single POV, but a wide cast of close characters. So I did have fun creating, these dynamic worlds and these rich communities and peoples and populations. But going forward, that is going to start changing. But yeah, for me, for whatever reason, I just was hesitant to get into too many different headspaces in a single story. And the idea of spreading, especially when you spread multiple characters across the board in different places, that sounded, at least early on, fairly overwhelming. So the fact that you're jumping right into it in the second book is pretty exciting. Because I do like reading wide POVs. I love reading single POVs. I mean, it all depends on the book, but I enjoyed both. So.
Right. Well, let me ask you. So, is the story that you're talking about here? Is it high fantasy in a separate world from ours? It's like a fictional reality.
Oh, yeah. So far, all of mine fall into the high fantasy side.
High fantasy. Okay, got it. And the reason I ask that is because, to your credit, like when you're doing so much world building and you're spending so much time onboarding people into that world, it makes complete sense to kind of focus in the perception in from one headspace. And that makes complete sense. And the only reason I felt as brave as I did is only because it's an urban fantasy. The world building insofar as, like, it's New York City, right?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So there's world building in terms of the history of this order and the magic systems and some of the characters. But in terms of the framework of reality, I don't necessarily have to do all that work like you might have to in order to make sure everybody's along for the ride. So it's I appreciate your kind words, and I would say to you, like, yeah, you're doing something just as monumental, which is like building a world from scratch. And I have ideas for my own, and it's daunting.
Yeah. Well, let me ask. Okay, so you said you're setting it in New York City. Is
Yes.
that where you have lived or live or okay? I was gonna say because I was wondering. I mean, I understand it's a very big, iconic city, but I was wondering why you said it there.
Yeah, so New York City was the obvious choice for a few reasons. First of all, in terms of it being a Jewish fantasy, it's a large Jewish population in New York City. I believe, off the top of my head, and I could be wrong, but it's the largest Jewish population outside of Israel. So it was a natural setting in that sense. And then also, I was born and raised in the suburbs outside of the city. I had lived in the city for a while. And it just felt like a really natural fit. The Judaism that I was raised with is a very humanist one. It's one centered in a kind of a cosmopolitan, diverse context. And so when I was coming up with my cast of characters beyond Arthur, it just made sense to be in New York, where it's one of the centers of Judaism, and you have this diversity, both outside the Jewish community and inside the Jewish community, all present in the New York area. So it just felt like a natural fit.
That's great, and like that definitely makes sense because some of my friends who are Jewish, a lot of them either have lived in New York or definitely have friends and family like there because, like you said, it is a big population.
Yeah.
Now, since your release, how do you feel the reception of your book? Because it is very different from what a lot of people, when you think fantasy, most people that jump to the iconic, again, these kind of themes like we mentioned earlier. Yeah, the Greco-Roman, you have Nordics, Egypt's still pretty popular, and there's a variety of inspirations now coming, at least Western side of things, that come from the various Asian populations. But like, how has it been for you, for both Jewish people as well as people outside of that, and how do you feel people have been taking your book?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's been a lot of chatter from both without and within the Jewish community. I mean, from without, it's actually fascinating because a lot of people who have read it who aren't Jewish are using it as a entry point into Judaism. And there's a lot of terms in there. So, for instance, Doctor Strange, I'm sure anybody watching this will be familiar with Doctor Strange, and he's got his magic cape that flies. In my story, Arthur has a magic tallis, right? And a tallis is a Jewish prayer shawl, right? It's white with the fringes at the end, and his flies around just like Doctor Strange's cape. And people outside the Jewish community are like, oh my God, what a fun way for me to learn what a tallis is, right? For me to learn what a prayer shawl is. So that's been really, really fascinating. And also for outside the Jewish community, the universality of the theme is something that I hoped for. And now to see it in reality has been really impactful. This idea that you can decide how you interact with your own heritage and what your heritage means to you and what you take from it. And that negotiation that we all do with our heritage, right? So that's been such a blessing. And then within the Jewish community, it's fascinating because the themes of the work about coming home to the Judaism, it resonates with a lot of people, and I've received a lot of messages on my socials of Jews who are like, I came back home to myself, this was what I needed to, right? But then there's other people who are like, yeah, like Arthur learns to be proud of who he is. I've been proud of who I am my entire life. Like, you're late to the party.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that that's a totally valid critique, that the big triumphant emotional arc of this story is a person coming home to his Judaism and being proud of that aspect of himself. There are so many Jewish people who are proud of that already, and I'm actually behind them in terms of thematic resonance. Like, I got to catch up. Like, there are plenty of people who are proud, and now let's have even richer stories, moving forward with that idea.
Well, like you said, you're coming up with a sequel, so that'll allow you that opportunity to kind of expand beyond that stage one. But all heroes need an origin story, and the reason for being and getting in there. So arguably, the finding the respect and joy and finding your place of being who you are is something that is kind of an origin story right there. So
right. And again, that's the universality that I was really hoping for, right? That was the engagement I was looking for. But yeah, it's been a blessing. I will say, I mentioned earlier Rivka. In some ways, the Rivka character has received more adoration than even our main POV Arthur. And it's been really fascinating to see people latch on to her in a way that I hadn't intended. You know, I wrote her as best as I could. I wrote her to the best of my ability, and people are like, yeah, that was, you know, you did it. Like I am with her. I feel like when she goes against Arthur, I'm split on the two sides completely. So that it's been really fun to hear that.
That's good.
Yeah,
You want
yeah.
people to have, you know, that dynamic, that bond with multiple characters, if at all possible. And it's also great for people to connect with the antagonist, or at least one of the antagonists. You don't have to necessarily love them or agree with, but there's something you need for them to be, so they're not just flat.
Yes.
And unless you're writing to like a children's story, I get that. Okay, sure. But
Right. Well, even, you know, like you look at the archetypical villain Sauron, right, from Lord of the Rings, and people say, oh, that's a nameless evil. It's an evil force, no backstory. It's like, well, not really. Like, he's an angel. He's a fallen angel. He's Lucifer. He has a chip on his shoulder. He was a lieutenant to a big bad evil guy before him, and he has like this chip on his shoulder, and he feels like he's bringing order. There's tons with Sauron who people hold up as this kind of faceless evil, when it couldn't be further from the truth. So you always, for any storytellers, you always, like we said before, you want to round that out. And it's been a real privilege to see that, you know, that happen with Rivka.
So did I ask, did you have an example of your book with you, or is it out?
Yes, I do. Pardon me, I should have, I'm so silly.
No worries, I always forget that when people turn around and ask me these questions, unless I'm sitting right where I am right now and have my book demos behind me.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry.
Here it is. I always like to just offer and ask because you do have that beautiful cover.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So what is the importance for anybody who doesn't know of the cover? Because you're showing this beautiful rainbow ish tree right there.
Yeah. Is this where I get to talk about the magic? Can I do?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if you're joining and you're looking at the cover here, you'll see that our main character Arthur has his back to us, and he's looking at what is called in Kabbalah the Tree of Life. Not unlike the world tree Yggdrasil in Norse mythology. The ways of thinking about it are slightly different. So in Jewish mythology, in Jewish folklore, the Tree of Life, and really the esoteric, like the higher mystic tradition, the Tree of Life represents almost a framework for reality, and kind of a framework for how God, Hashem in Hebrew, created the universe. Mm-hmm. So there are different levels of the tree, with the earth being at the bottom. So in other words, there are these higher, you can think of them as planes, or you could think of them as metaphysical manifestations that then their divinity trickles down to earth, where we receive all of these energies. And the different worlds represent different things. So my favorite is Gevora, which is in the middle of the tree. It represents justice, right, and fairness. And you don't always want to be super compassionate with like kids or with students, because sometimes the right thing to do is to come down hard on them, right? Sometimes you got to teach a lesson, not physically, but you have to be firm. You have to be just. You can't always be this benevolent, kind person when the situation doesn't call for it. So that's what the Tree of Life is. Now, in my story, I've literalized that concept. So the Sanhedrin, which is, I think, the first time I'm mentioning the term, that's the name for the Jewish demon hunters. The Sanhedrin, their souls ascend to the higher levels of the tree, depending on to different levels, depending on what type of magic they cast. Mm-hmm. They commune with those energies. They channel those energies down to our reality and then cast spells or do various things.
That's really fun. I like that.
Yeah, so like for instance, as an example, the conjurers are people who can commune with some of the worlds like Gevora and there's another called Chesed, and they are the ones who will make pacts with angels up the tree, make a blood pact, and they come down to then gain entry to the physical world, basically. Yeah, or there's others in the Sanhedrin. There's others like casters who literally use Torah verses and imbue those verses with other worlds' energies to do an effect on the physical reality. So it's great, and and as these stories go, like Arthur being the chosen one, this kind of Campbell character, he has access to the entirety of the tree.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it's like an Avatar situation.
Mm-hmm.
So he has access to the entirety. And one of the best, I think one of the cool mechanics about this story is that if you spend too long in the tree, if you channel or harness it too much, what happens is you go tree burnt, where your mind becomes too untethered from reality, and you kind of go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have a built-in tension for all these demon hunters who are channeling this magic, including Arthur. They can't overdo it, or else they're going to fry their brain. So.
I was gonna just say, like, I think just personally, like any good magic system, it can't be just a free for all the time. You have to have that give and take. So there has to be a catch,
Yep.
a hook, or else you're gonna have this like ultimately powerful character, and where's the story gonna go? So
Right.
I do like that. The tree
Absolutely. And of course, it goes without saying that navigation between using the magic and maybe trying not to go tree burnt, that comes into the story, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's hey, yeah, like you said right at the beginning, you have this rich, this folklore, these magic systems that I really haven't heard a lot of people talk about. Anybody's used them for modern storytelling, be it books or series and movies. So that's wonderful that you're doing this. And yeah, good question. Like, why hasn't people utilized this before? You have a plethora of.
I know. Well, and I think there's a few reasons, right? The first one is that the Jewish community is a diaspora community, and what that means is oftentimes traditional knowledge is lost. And especially for the American Jewish community, there was a desire for Jews coming to the United States to get rid of the old world customs and to get rid of kind of the folklore and the more supernatural or superstitious sides of the religion when assimilating into American life. So on a very basic level, why has nobody done this quite thing before? Because a lot of it's lost. Like a lot of it, we, meaning the Jewish community, is in a constant state of rebuilding. And it just like even something as simple as the language of Yiddish, which is a combination of German and Hebrew, even that has been lost for a lot of younger generations of Jews, and there's now a renewed interest for younger generations to be like, wait, I want to speak a little bit more Yiddish. I want to learn that. It's the same thing with the folklore. That's number one. Number two is I think, and again, I'll speak from an American Jewish perspective. I cannot speak for my diaspora cousins, but in the assimilation of American Jewry, there's this kind of idea that we have settled in large part into certain roles in society. You see a lot of Jewish lawyers, you see a lot of Jewish comics, you see a lot of Jewish people going to higher education. The days of Jews as kind of physical thugs or gangsters, or the days of Jews being superheroes who are punching somebody. While many Jewish creators created superheroes, and there were Jewish gangsters back in the 30s and 40s, our identity as an American collective has shifted from that in past decades. So I think there's a little bit of a reticence for some Jewish writers to return to a more, let's call it, physical, action-oriented story, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, I can definitely see that, and but it's just interesting the way the evolution of each generation, what we're comfortable with, our interests, do impact things like these resurgence of, as you were saying, the Yiddish language and having the people who come back and have more interest. So it's always, I feel like, such a tragedy when things disappear in history, and maybe it's a language, maybe it's a culture, or belief, or folklore, because that happens all the time. So I'm glad that it sounds like the newer generations are aware of that and trying to do something about that. So
yeah, well, absolutely, and again, going back to this idea of universality versus particularism. Is this particular to the Jewish community? Absolutely not, right? Like my students, so I'm a high school teacher, like I might have mentioned, I think at the top. And, one of the things we read last year was a comic by a Chinese American named American Born Chinese. And that also is about like this wrestling between stereotypes and the traditional expectations of your culture and your ethnic enclave versus who you're trying to become and honoring your traditions versus not. So, but this is by no means limited to the Jewish community. But I think the Jewish community in the past 10 to 15 years, we've seen it more acutely, I think. The old, the post-World War II order of the United States, where the Jewish Americans felt like their identity was America first, and then, the Judaism is ancillary. I feel like it's being shaken up a little bit. It's being shaken up. So with that has come this renewed sense of like, all right, well, if we're going to be more Jewish, we're going to return to our Judaism. What does that mean? We have to like find those nodes of what it means to be Jewish in a more explicit way.
Well, if, let's say, more people start doing what you're doing and writing about it and portraying it on maybe the stage or the big screen, is that something you want? And if so, is there any kind of cautionary limitations that you're like, I would like this to happen, but ...
I would like it to happen. So I'll answer that right off the bat. I would like that to happen. There's a big debate within the Jewish community. Of course, there's a history of anti-Semitism, and the big debate is, do you shrink from your Jewish identity to protect yourself, or do you go out in front of it and be open about being Jewish and Jewish experiences to kind of like personalize and personify what the Jewish experience so people feel more connected to Jews, right? And to combat anti-Semitism. And I think the answer is usually like being more open, just like this, right? Having a conversation, talking through these issues, humanizing yourself for people. And through storytelling, I think that's the answer, right? That said,
It's a tough question. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. No, we got some Pulitzer Prize winning journalism happening here in this. It's good.
We'll go to some easier questions.
No, it's good. I like it. I will say, if you take a look at some of my TikTok comments on some of my content, or if you look at my Instagram my Instagram comments from the past couple of weeks, you will also find that as the Jewish community makes itself more loud, for lack of a better term, more visible, it has engendered frankly, an anti-Semitic backlash that is all over littering social media. I'll give you a great example. Just this morning, I put out a whole video about making the case that Spider-Man could be called Jewish. And I go into like, it's created by Stan Lee and Jewish creators. He lives in Forest Hills. It's a traditional Jewish community. I make the case about with great power comes great responsibility being a Talmudic concept from Jewish text. And it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, right? It's tongue-in-cheek. Like, do I literally want to... It's anything, yeah. And I'm not in here to be like, he's Jewish, and if you say otherwise, you're evil. Or I'm like, no, it's like we're having fun. Like, here's the Jewish parts of him. I mean, the comments on that video are, I would be disheartened if I didn't have wide eyes going in. So thankfully I knew what I was getting into, but there are some straight up blatant, like, how could you do this? You're trying to steal him, typical Jewish person. You're trying to steal this, what doesn't belong to you. I'm like, guys, it's an Instagram reel just talking about Spider-Man's origins. I'm having a little fun. Like, we do not have to get that serious. So this is a long answer to your question, your very good question of, I think that you have to be open. You have to trust, and this is the case with all groups of people, especially in America. You have to trust that people will discern the difference between you as a person and you being earnest and trying to communicate and talk with people versus you in bad faith trying to just put yourself out there and be loud for the sake of being loud. Like, you have to trust your audience, which is sometimes hard, but here we are. I think it's the right choice. Yeah. And
I was gonna say, I know that was one of the more deep questions, but it just worked well, and I was just curious of your thoughts. But let's jump a little bit to a new topic, and this would be like now as a debut author and having your book out for. You said it's about a year or 8 months, or where was that?
We've been about, I think we're going into 10 months on now.
Okay, 10 months. It was right around there. Anywho, how do you like to reach your readership, or how do you like to find your readers? Do you do live events? Are you pretty much just social? I know you said you're a teacher. Do you talk to your students? You be like, hey, I know this great author. Like, how do you find your readers?
So there's a few things, right? The students, yeah, like the students, my students know. I think there's even one of my students commented in the chat, Mr. Goldstein is king. That's my last name, Goldstein.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that. They support me, I talk about it with my kids, but in terms of like legitimate outreach, so I have my socials here at JS Gold Author, and then Instagram as well. My old account when I first got started, it actually ended up getting hacked. So I had about four. Yeah, it's a whole. Dude, how much time do we have on this live? I'll be brief. It got hacked in the beginning of the summer, and I had around, I don't know, 1,500 followers, which was a big deal starting from nothing for me. And then I basically had to start over. So on Instagram, you'll see my new account is Author JS Gold, and I've got about 100 and change, right? We're building it back up. But in addition, live events are like going to cons is huge. It's huge. And I had no idea about going to cons when this thing was first published. I was like, oh, I can do that? I can go, like, I can be the one behind the booth with the thing?
Yep.
I went to Otakon. Do you know about Otakon?
No, like, you said you're still up in the New York area, so I'm down in Georgia, so that's probably a little...
Oh, hey! We were just talking about
that one.
Oh, we were just talking about Georgia in class today. Because I do American history, and we were talking about the 13 colonies and how Georgia kind of started as a penal colony and everything. Yeah, anyway, so yeah. So Otakon is in Washington, D.C., and it's essentially an anime convention. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate. I was able to get a booth. It's an anime convention. This is a fantasy novel, so maybe the synergy isn't quite there. But let me tell you, like, it was awesome. I ended up selling over 30 books in a day or two, which is fantastic. And like, everybody was really sweet, and it was just so fun to be out in front of an audience in real time and to remind yourself that people love this stuff. I was going to curse. Can we curse on this live? We probably can't.
I put it as family safe, but as long as it's not like super dark, like.
Yeah. No, okay, fair enough. I was just gonna say I was gonna use another word for crap. You know what I mean? Like I love this crap. Like it was great. It was amazing. So the in-person stuff, getting on that con circuit is definitely now a big a goal of mine. Is to like set up events throughout the year. Have you've done cons, right? But down in the South, yeah.
Oh yeah, since I live outside of Atlanta, there are a lot of big ones that come through. So I actually just worked Dragon Con, which is the Southeast biggest, Comic-Con style convention. And so that was a couple weeks ago. I'm still trying to catch up on sleep from that one.
Oh yeah. Well, that's huge, right? That's like 70,000 or something, or 60,000, or
last year was 85, and
oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's incredible. Yeah, all right. Maybe not during the live, but you can give me some tips because like I'm overwhelmed.
Yes. That I was gonna say, that one's a big one. So even though it was kind of funny, like again, I'm an extreme extrovert, so that ended up being my first convention, and everybody's like, that should never be anybody's first convention. That is like terrifyingly huge. But I still love it for its own ways. But the next one I'm attending in a couple of weeks. In October is far, far, far smaller, but because it's so, that size down, it's far more intimate, and you have a lot more time to actually not just connect with your readership or potential new readers, but also with the author group, which they're the best ways to like get you some tips and tricks to like point you to new conventions and new tricks of like how to display or what you should bring. And it's just like, by pen and paper, and it's just like, tell me your ways, wise one. Like,
yeah, right. You get all your Obi-Wans, all your Yodas,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, go to conventions, you must. It's like, yeah, right. So that's been huge, and honestly, like, I don't know about for you, but when you write a project, the themes of the project and the things that are on your mind when you're writing it, it kind of invites you to do a deeper exploration with ancillary writing. So, for instance, I started a Substack, and I've been doing like personal essay, op-eds and essays about things in the Jewish zeitgeist and in pop culture. And it was really fun to kind of go off on that tangent and to explore deeper some of the themes that I brought up. So one of them was like, why I decided to put the word Jew on the page and have an urban fantasy with Jews explicitly, as opposed to like allegory, where this could be a stand-in for Jews. This could be a stand-in for the Jewish experience, right? It was so fun to go into a whole thing a whole diatribe about why I made that choice. So that's another way too. I mean, if there's more, please. I've got pen and paper right here. I can write down. You can give real-time advice. You know what I mean?
Well, like I said, if you have any specific questions, it's hard to always do general questions because it's like, I don't even know where to start. But if you have specific questions, I'd be happy to answer. But yeah, going to actually that concept of why you chose to use the word Jew, it's interesting for my, I'm Scandinavian by descent, so I have a series that is based on, it's a Nordic myth retelling. And I chose not to use the word Viking because that's not really what they would have done. And I have a whole reason why they're Viking,
Wow.
Everything about them it says that, and marketing material, but as soon as you open that book, that word is not used throughout the whole 16 novels.
Wow.
So I think there's a reason for that. So
yeah, of course.
Meant pirate, and I'm like, they are not serving as pirates, they're just people of that,
Yeah, well, so what did they call themselves?
Everybody just called themselves, they're all a bunch of micropopulations. They weren't one people, and the word Viking wasn't representative of people, it was representative of an occupation, which was equivocal to a pirate. So piracy. To go Viking was to go and raid because you were partaking in piracy. Right,
wow. Wow. And of course, that makes sense, right? You've got the different fjords up in Norway and stuff, and
you have all sorts of Scandinavia, and it branches over down the line to like Iceland, and you have, Sweden. They all were very different, but that's why in their mythos, there's a lot of deviation in the stories because not everybody believed all the same things, or they had regional differences. So very different. But it's interesting when you start deep diving into some of this stuff, which is a lot of fun.
Of course. And like I actually, as it happens, one of my characters, who, and this is a great opportunity to introduce her, Lynn is Arthur's love interest. And Lynn
if there was gonna be a romantic partner.
Oh yeah. We got a whole romance subplot in the first book too. So any romantasy fans out there, you're gonna get your romantasy fix as well. Lynn features prominently in the plot, and their relationship is directly tied to the themes of the story, which is, she's Jewish. He's Jewish, but he, of course, is keeping his Judaism at arm's length. She wants him to come back to his Judaism. She wants to, if they have kids one day, raise them as Jewish. And she feels like, I love you, but I can't be with you if you're not going to accept this part of us, right? Not only you, but me too. Anyway, the reason I bring her up is because she has Scandinavian blood as well. She has some heritage, and Swedish, and she is a huge fan of, not ABBA, because I didn't want to use ABBA's name in the book, but a Swedish like pop metal band, Oppo, and they have songs about and they've got songs about the folklore, right? The Scandinavian folklore and the Norse legends and stuff. And what you were talking about with the different variations of storytelling, it reminds me of when I was doing the research, like Odin is married, like sometimes he's married to Freya, but sometimes she's called Frigga. Are Frigga and Freya two different people, or is it the same person, right? So anyway, it's really, really fascinating, and it goes to that point of like, when you write a Nordic fantasy, you write a Jewish fantasy, it's all, what you find is that we're all kind of tethered, right? We're all kind of bouncing around the same ideas.
And to answer your question, Frigg came first, and they were separate. But as as history evolved, all of a sudden it shifted. They merged, and it only became Freya way late. So there was a little confusion, but it's just because, again, that period of history was hundreds and hundreds of years long. So there was an evolution of lore.
So okay, got it. Because it's the Aesir and the Vanir, or the two, for Odin, I love it. Yeah, I have Jewish mythology and Jewish folklore, but what's cool is because Arthur is such a fan of other folklores and mythic traditions, I get to bring all that in as well, which is really fun. Yeah.
I'll do one little shout out. Hi, Derek. I saw he was saying hi to us, and I don't know if you know him personally, but you should follow him. He is a fantastic author as well, and he's just a fun person to watch all his posts about his portal fantasy about dinosaurs. It's great.
A portal fantasy about what?
Dinosaurs.
Oh, what? Like dinosaur writing? That'd be, yeah.
There's definitely at one of the covers has someone riding a dinosaur.
Oh, that's sick. And like the intricacies of like riding a triceratops versus T-Rex or something. Oh, that's sick. Like battle royale dinosaurs. I love that.
But yes, fun stuff. You never know who's you're going to discover and what they write here on Book Talk. So
Absolutely, of course, this is beautiful. Yeah.
Let me actually ask you, since the hour is starting to speed on by, but there are a couple things I always like to ask to make sure I cover the bases, especially if this platform's nice. Usually it is. Sometimes it has glitches. I'll try to repurpose this live stream on my YouTube channel later on and put all your contact information down below. Okay. With that said, for everybody here and for anybody who listens at a later date, you mentioned you're here on Book Talk, and you talked about the fact that you're restarting your Instagram account because I'm so sorry that original one got hacked. No one wants that ever. Are you on any other socials? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have a website? Where else can people kind of find and follow you?
Sure. Yeah. So let's cover the bases. So here on TikTok, JS Gold Author. Mm-hmm. The new Instagram is Author JS Gold. I wanted to keep the same keywords, to keep the search engine. The Substack, I do have a Substack. I try to come out with either seasonal or even monthly updates, depending on how busy I am with other things. So that's, the struggle is real when you're like trying to balance this writing and that job. And anyway, so that Substack is at JS Gold Author as well, or just JS Gold. I think if you type in JS Gold at Substack, it should appear. I don't think there's any competition on the medium. And then I'm also on Facebook. So if you type in JS Gold Author on Facebook or JS Gold on Facebook, I'm totally there as well. I post a lot of the content on Instagram and Facebook. And my website, and if you want to reach me, my email's there, is jsgoldauthor.com.
Nice. Very nice, because
I felt so official saying it,
I know it is. It's one of those things when you finally go through like the little stages, and there's like the checklist of being an author, and obviously everybody is different, and no one has to do any one thing. But yes, getting your email, getting a website, your first official social base tied to it, and reach out to a newsletter. I mean, all different levels of like feeling official and. But they do matter. I mean,
it does. It does. Oh my God! You pay for this check mark on Instagram, right? Or and you know what? And you think like, what's the difference of this check mark? I'm paying how much money for this check? And then you realize, well, actually, you know what? It does make it more official. You feel kind of like more grounded in this medium,
Yeah. So one of the other questions I have is, with your debut book out and available, what formats is it available in? I think yours was paperback, but like, do you have hardcover, ebook, audio? Like, what formats and where can people get it?
Yeah, so there are 3 formats, and all 3 of these can be found wherever you buy your books. So ebook, there is an ebook, and in fact, my ebook is on sale for just $1. In fact, 99 cents for the entirety of September. That's right. Yeah, what? Yes, we're celebrating Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and the Jewish New Year, the high holidays, and so I'm doing a celebration of just $1, and you get the digital copy immediately. Paperback is also found wherever you buy your books, just Sanhedrin Chronicles, paperback, and there's also the audiobook. I fought really hard for that audiobook, and my publisher delivered, and it is there, and it's read by a voice actor named David Cantor. He does a wonderful job, and people have really responded to that too. They're like, "Oh, it's so funny." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I didn't know his intent for it to be that funny, but okay, that's good. I'm glad he's doing that.
Hey, sometimes humor makes things like far more approachable. I wish I was a better humor writer. Not to say I don't have any characters that can't make you chuckle, but like that's like one of the hardest things for me. I feel confident with like action scenes and lots of tragic scenes. I'm a dark fantasy. I listen to dark fantasy a lot, but conversations, anything like that, descriptions, that's fine by me too. But like when it comes to humor, I'm like, man, that's what I need to take classes on.
For sure, because humor is, of course, subjective like everything else is, but it's even more subjective, if that makes any sense. Like, you really have to go out on a limb and trust your audience with a lot of your humor writing.
Yes. Now that you also have gone to at least one convention, are you planning to do any other ones going forward?
I am. So I put into BookCon, which is going to be held up here in New York City next year. I'm waiting to hear back to see if I got the booth there. I'd be very, very excited. And of course, you can follow me for updates on all that. I am also doing an event for anybody in the New York City area. In December, I'm doing a event at the Mid-Westchester Jewish Community Center, the JCC. I'll be there with a bunch of Jewish authors doing like a symposium, I suppose, is what you would call it.
Yeah.
And there are more things on the way. There's more things cooking that I don't necessarily want to like jinx anything yet. Yeah. But yeah, I am. The intention is fully to have like physical opportunities to meet me and to buy books and do all that. Yeah, people can follow me, and I'll trust me. I'm going to update everybody all the time.
And for anybody who listens to this, and just giving a heads up, when it comes to joining certain events, especially the bigger conventions, you have to plan well in advance. It's not like I'm going to just put my hat in, the next month. Like some of them, you have to sign up like a year prior. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a lot of planning in advance. So for me, yeah, I put my toe in did Dragon Con once, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm going to try to do that again.
Yeah.
And after a couple of years, I started doing a few others. So I'm up to probably around 6 a year. I don't know if I want to do more than that, because that's still a lot to me, but
yeah. No, that's amazing to have said. Like, I find that in terms of momentum, you always having something on the horizon is very good. It's very good mentally to say, hey, even if I'm in a little bit of a lull right now, nothing's happening this week, next month I've got that, and people will meet me there, right? It's always good to be on the wheel.
Yes, it definitely is. And there are always, there are new ways now for authors that are expanding how we can reach a readership. And maybe it is going to a convention. Maybe it's, having your own Patreon, maybe whatever. But like, there's so many ways. And I forgot to ask, are you indie? Are you published through some kind of press?
Yes.
I forgot to ask that.
Yeah, so I'm published through a indie press named Histria Books. And we're very, very excited about it because Histria just got a collaboration with Simon & Schuster done. Ooh. So hopefully, so into next year and the years beyond, my publisher is going to be using Simon & Schuster's distribution and Simon & Schuster's marketing resources. Yeah, so we're really excited to see where that takes us. And it's been a pleasure to work with them.
That's great, yeah, because like that's the thing is people, I think a lot of wannabe authors, these writers out there, hear two sides of a story, but there's more. This is a story with multiple sides. This is not like a multifaceted. That there are other ways and other opportunities outside of the big five and outside of going through indie. I am through indie at this moment, but there are so many small and mid-level presses and these other routes like Royal Road, where people are releasing books that way and building followings, and it's fun. It's fun to hear what people are doing. So
yeah, I mean, and if there are any authors listening or any writers listening, one of my friends in my writing workshop, she was published through I would say a mid-tier publisher. So I don't know if they're necessarily a household name, but they certainly know what they're about. And she won an award for her genre. I think it was for crime, I believe. And she won awards. Like her publisher put her out there. They knew what they were doing. So this idea that it has to be the big five. Meanwhile, I just said we're distributing through Simon & Schuster. So what is it? But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. It's exciting, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it is like there's so many ways to approach it, and there are again pros and cons for all of them. So do your research, find out what works for you, and down the line you can always adjust to different things depending on your future projects. So,
absolutely.
Anywho, that was my pitch of the day. But let me also ask, since we have a few minutes left, and this goes for anybody who's listening, but particularly for you, is there any topic you wanted to cover that we haven't covered? Any questions you wanted to ask that you didn't get a chance to ask yet? So this is that perfect time to do any or all of the above.
Yeah, I would say, can we talk about the angels and demons?
Of course, why not?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, so there are there are angels in the Jewish mythic tradition, the Jewish folk tradition, mystic tradition, if you will. People think that the image of the winged saint, archangel Michael and stuff, the very Christian image is the definitive image of angels. But actually, like when you look at the kind of apocryphal Jewish texts, there's angels, and in Torah, of course, there's angels all over the place. And one of my favorites that I really tried to incorporate, one of my favorite designs, in the book of Ezekiel, which isn't apocryphal, but it has some really trippy parts, they describe like angels have these wheels instead of heads, or they have like eyes.
I've actually seen someone like sketch this out at some point. I have, yeah.
So one of the things I really tried to do with my angels and demons was to go beyond the stereotypical depiction. So for the angels, like I just said, I have angels with like Rorschach ink on their faces that are kind of right, that are constantly shifting and no eyes. I have demons. The whole thing with my demons is that they are half bestial, half human, and so you have like possums with human hands, and you have like spiders with human heads, and it's like all these weird chimeric combinations of things. And my favorite non-human character would probably be I'll give two. So Egrat is the main demoness that Rivka summons to kind of help her. She's got these slug antennae on her coming out of her head, and they blink at people, and it's really unnerving, and she has like acidic fingertips and stuff, really gross. And then Azazel is the main angel counterpart to Arthur, who is his kind of his boy, right? His Robin, if you will. And like I said, he's got these Rorschach like ink moving images on his face, and his armor is like this really dingy, tarnished armor, and he's got like these like overflowing black locks, and like wheels on him and stuff. And eyes in weird places. So it's really it was such a joy, and so like the most creative part to just come up with the designs for all these supernatural entities.
I feel like if you haven't started, and if you can budget for it, you need to have like some little, I don't even know if it's like playing cards of like all your characters that people can collect and have at like live events, and you could even sign them too, but like have your like collector's playing cards of like all the different entities that you have in your story.
Yeah, I listen, I'm a huge Magic the Gathering fan, and it would be there would be nothing more exciting to me than to just have like the Azazel card. You know what I mean? Like the little print. And I am working on it. You very rightly said if it's within your budget. So I want to support artists. I want to be the patron supporter of all these artists these wonderful artists everywhere. It costs money. They need to get paid, and like I don't always have the funds. But if you're watching this, please reach out to me. Like I'm looking for opportunities. I'm looking for people who can help me get exactly what you're talking about. Me. Yeah. And then there's roundabout ways of fundraising. I mean, I've been doing Kickstarters for different things, but like you don't have to go necessarily to that extreme. But there are other ways too. It's like, hey, I'm trying to raise funds so I can be able to do this. And it may not be my book, but maybe some kind of expansion that enhances the experience. Right. Who knows? Maybe you'll come up with an alternative Magic the Gathering game with your characters for a hyper expansion. Stop! My head's gonna explode. There's just gonna be blood everywhere. Oh no! Don't get me that. Yeah. No, but that is the dream. That is totally the dream. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. This is fun because I know one of the things that I did for a couple of my characters, because one of my series is a young adult series, but it's inspired by it's a young adult magical multiverse portal fantasy. Everything you want in a quintessential fantasy finds its way in there, but it's also inspired by childhood. So things like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Dragonheart and Jackie Chan Adventures, Amazing Myself, and all these kind of things. Beast Machines all find their way in here. But one of the things, because it's fun to see how many people enjoy reading and then playing various games. And so my husband actually loves D&D, and so he was helping me come up with character sheets and especially subclasses. And then I had 3D printed like little characters that I hand paint, and so I have like little expansion, little packs if people want the D&D expansion of like that. So people can play the character. Of course.
Let me tell you, that guy sounds like a keeper. You should marry him.
I know. Oh wait, I did.
Yeah, and you're right. You did. Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's like coming up with character sheets, D&D character sheets for the that's brilliant. That's legitimately brilliant.
Yeah. And honestly, as long as, if you know it well enough, you could do it yourself. If you know someone else a friend to help you out, once you have that kind of set in stone, then you have a printer, some nice paper, you go to a nice, have it out, and it's just something nice to tuck in with your stuff if people want the extra whatever you are charging for the expansion.
Right. Wow. I'm coming out of this live with more ideas than I had going in, and I didn't think that was possible. And this is like, I have to write it down. I have to get it out.
I'm the person, I can come up with 1,000 ideas, but only one might pertain to me. Usually I'm just like, well, for you, this works for you.
Right.
Yeah,
it's all fun.
We're creative people. You never know who's going to say something and spark, the next idea, the next way.
100%. This really, and I meant what I said though. This has been an amazing. It's very informative. You're very good at what you do.
Oh, thank you. Well, you should have seen my first few of them, I ever filmed years ago. Thank goodness that all my other co-hosts were very understanding, because it was a lot more fumbling, or actually at one point had a whole printout of potential questions.
Yeah. I like how you shrugged your shoulders.
You kind of develop a feel for it. So
yeah, right. I like how you shrugged your shoulders at that too. I had a list,
I did the questions.
Right.
But yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me for this past hour. It's been absolutely lovely meeting you and learning far more about your book, because I remember I featured it on my written blog at one point, and I just remember that stunning cover, and it is so stunning. So it's been really nice to be able to actually talk to you and pick your brain a little bit more about your book and your future works, which is also exciting.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm hoping maybe next story is end of next year, maybe early 2027.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then, if you ever want to do another one of these, let me know. I plan them in advance.
Okay, you plan them in advance. I gotcha. Yes.
But I would love to be able to talk with you some more at a future date too.
Absolutely. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Love you. And thanks for everybody who's come and joined. Yeah. And I will see y'all next time. Happy reading.